Hello everyone and welcome to Over Brew. Today I'm joined by Rory Tonkin, who's a cybersecurity advisor for Tarian, Regional Organised Crime Unit. We're going to be talking today about cyber resilience and cybersecurity and how it's not anymore just about the deployment of technical skills, it's about working with people, training their cyber behaviours, but also putting safeguards and guardrails in place that allow them to be safe and proactive in their day-to-day lives. Hopefully today you'll find something of value as we talk about who Tarian are, what Rory's role is, and what they can offer to education. So, Rory, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It's obviously we've been working together now for some time, back and forth. So, just tell us a little bit about what your role at Tarian involves, and why has cybersecurity now become more of a people issue as opposed to an IT issue?
Yeah, certainly. So my role, as you described, is one of the cybersecurity advisors in Tarian, and specifically I look after the education sector. With this, we're finding a dramatic increase across the board where education institutions are being targeted. And the kind of methods which these criminals are taking, they're not going for maybe the IT teams. They're not going certainly for the digital teams. They're very much going for practitioners who naturally rely on the specialists in the departments, and that's how they're kind of getting in. We're letting them in as opposed to themselves forcing their way in. I work with primary schools, secondary schools, colleges, universities. We are doing some work with some exam boards. I'm in the early stages of talking with some of the larger government bodies such as Estin. There's a real kind of need, if you like, where the education sector, they do enough already. The day-to-day, there's stressful roles bringing up our young people. However, this threat is there. And because naturally the data that you guys hold, the sensitive, the financial, these type of criminals really look to cause this operational disruption. So it is, from our point of view, we're looking at it changing the approach, if you like, from reactive to proactive, and that's where I come in. So we cover essentially the moment you come across the bridge to the Tenby seaside and then up just past the mountain range in mid Wales. So it's a big old area. But yeah, certainly we are getting around, and we're having some great responses from these schools, colleges, universities, as I say, local councils as well. Just forgot to add them. Yeah, it is a problem, but because it's more of the human side of things, which we look at, there are certainly mitigating steps that we can all take, very easy, practical, that can transfer then to our personal lives as well.
Great. And I know from my interactions with Tarian and its various guises and with different members of staff that the ability to go from being reactive to a lot of situations in an education setting to being more proactive and putting steps in place to not just look after our learners, but to safeguard our staff as well in their day-to-day practices. Tarian has had a massive value in supporting us to do that. Now, I know in previous conversations we've discussed and you've talked about Project Apollo. So can you give me a bit of an overview and a bit of an outline of what Project Apollo is and how that helps to support education institutions? Yeah,
certainly. So Project Apollo is our education project. It's kind of changed as I've come into the lead. It has its core kind of concept where we're looking to empower staff. As I said earlier on, this threat is very much coming to the forefront of education. I know, for example, recently the cyber breaches survey that was kind of updated on April the 30th. It's showing that the education institutions, education sector as a whole, is being hammered at double the rate as opposed to businesses. So there's a real need for a project such as Apollo. So not only are we empowering staff, but my overarching aim is to get every education institution to have a cyber incident response plan. The phrase I like to use when I do these talks and my awareness sessions is we're all familiar of what happens when the fire bell rings. However, none of us really know what to do if, for example, your system's shut down. And I appreciate not only the education sector, but in life, we do heavily rely on the digital world.
100%. And I appreciate with your work as well. I mean, you have so many interagency interactions that as an entity, Tarian engages and collects so much intelligence. And I know you, as you already mentioned, you personally work at the coalface with the education institutions. In your experience, what are the most significant cyber threats that are facing education providers right now, today?
Yeah, I think the main one, or certainly the main access route, is phishing. We're all familiar with the term phishing. Phishing emails specifically is the main access route these criminals are taking. And within these phishing emails, they are deploying things in attachments such as ransomware or malware that certainly then becomes a ransomware attack. But you've got your impersonations. But for the most part, it usually stems through a phishing email. I think we're up to about 91% again from this cyber breaches survey that has given us this data. That is the main way they're coming in. And as I say, they are sophisticated emails. They're not, but I know, we're talking 10, 20 years ago where these emails would look very disjointed. There'd be kind of grammar errors. Certainly the email that you'd see would be clearly not from someone that you know. But what I like to tell people is, if you do receive this email, it's just check, verify. If you're not expecting this email or this communication, just verify it. Don't go along with it. Now, that is hard because you also have the stress factors, as we've kind of alluded to, of an education practitioner day to day, regardless of role, from practitioner right up to your SMT. There are stresses. As humans, stress is common day to day. But it's at that point where it just so happens that email will land in the inbox.
And it's very much a shift then towards sort of identity-based attacks. So they are trying to manipulate the individual or replicate an entity that is prominent in that individual's life. They've done enough behind the scenes that, they can work that out from individuals that they're targeting. Obviously, with AI prominence at the moment, AI-enabled type scams are becoming more and more frequent. I think you've mentioned before. I think you've touched on this, but just remind me again, why is education such a prominent target? Why are these entities or these actors attacking education institutions? Yeah,
I mean, there's a few reasons. The main one is that sensitive data. So you're looking at not only kind of learner names, addresses, date of birth, but then you can almost go that step further in terms of like safeguarding notes, neurodiversity assessments, medication schedules. The list goes on in terms of the sensitive data that you guys hold. Certainly, as you kind of work up the education ladder, as you become your colleges, certainly your higher education with universities, there's a dramatic amount of financial data, research data. And again, it's all about opportunity. These criminals are aware that you guys hold that. Certainly, we've spoken about opportunities before. Criminals, and certainly us as members of the public, our lives, certainly as a parent, runs year to year using the academic calendar as a structure. We're aware of the times off. There are certainly exam seasons. And this is why the education sector is targeted so much. There are legacy systems in place. And I think the main thing is that it's not just IT's problem. I think from the conversation I've had right across the region, people are very happy to say, we don't have to worry about this because IT will look after it for us. And there is some sort of evidence to that. However, as we've already spoken about, certainly with the use of AI, these phishing emails and campaigns are becoming so sophisticated, they're bypassing these technical controls and they're landing in the main inbox. Therefore, we do believe them. And that is a real problem.
Okay. So there's an element of disruption then being created. So what impact do you think that has, or what impact have you seen that have on victims?
So I know, so if I use ransomware as an example, as a method where malware will be deployed, usually from a phishing email, the user, again, who is having a very normal day and sees a very normal and believable email, will click said attachment or link, believing that they are just acting as part of their day-to-day duties. But when this kind of malware starts being distributed, it will simply lock you out of your system. So you can imagine the panic, certainly the disruption that causes, if not only do you not have access to your day-to-day resources as a teacher, you're looking at registers, communication with parents. I've already alluded to the medication schedules, safeguarding notes. When I've spoken to certain special schools, you can then kind of go into certain equipment which is on the network, which relies on that digital kind of interaction as well. There's a whole host of problems that come with these types of attacks, and certainly these criminals kind of prey and feed off that.
And these type of inbox attacks, the messaging that's received, like you said, it might look very commonplace, but quite often will generate or elicit a sense of urgency in the victim, in the person that they're targeting. So then what does good cyber resilience actually look like from a college or a school?
So I think the key thing here, and I know people are quite shocked when I say this, but it's being prepared over being perfect. I think certainly if you've got those basic tips in place, certainly if you've got a cyber incident response plan, which Apollo is trying to push across the region, it's in basic language. It's a simple step process. Everyone has a role, which I've said earlier, it's not just IT's problem. Certainly they have a role within that kind of attack scenario, if you like, but so does everyone else. So I think in terms of keeping the reputation of the institution, certainly in terms of protecting the sensitive data of learners specifically, albeit staff are also targeted as well, HR, payroll, these kind of things which we all kind of hold on our drives, on digital systems, they unfortunately can also be kind of infiltrated and exploited as well.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier about the sort of anecdote of fire drills, firearms fire drills. How can institutions sort of practice cyber resilience activity or cyber resilience attacks even to try and develop a culture of familiarity as opposed to a culture maybe of blame and make people more comfortable reporting? Because often people will feel embarrassed that they've been duped. So how can institutions practice that sort of cyber resilience approach? Yeah,
certainly. I think the key thing you said there is people are embarrassed. I think there's a real reputation is key, isn't it, across the board, and certainly as humans we don't like to be embarrassed, albeit because of the sophistication of these types of attacks. This type of crime doesn't discriminate. Pretty much anyone, including myself, can be a victim of it. But certainly with Tarian, with what I do, I go into schools, education institutions. I run tabletop exercising. I like to promote, just from being in the room, being a part of law enforcement, having that in-person interaction. You mentioned the no blame culture is massive. Not too long ago, I was in a school. Very kindly, the deputy head stood up and said, as part of the session, we did receive a phishing email not too long ago, of which three other staff members stood up and said they also received the same email. However, none of them told the other one. So I think from that point of view, even if we get a bit worried that this is a phishing email and we identify it, it's just so key. We all talk day to day. As staff in our own kind of in our own areas and our own workplaces, we talk all the time. But I think when it comes to receiving that email, just having that bit of suspicion, again, that verification, certainly is key. But where we kind of come in, I speak to governors, I speak to your SMT. We discuss kind of like what we're seeing as law enforcement, what's being targeted with education. Certainly, if there's any sort of phishing campaigns that are ongoing, we like to let people know. Again, a lot of our governance is from the National Cybersecurity Centre, and from there we give plenty of free resources. All of our services are fully funded. So yeah, there's a real mixture. We have the ransomware simulation, which is great, guided. So at each point we're asking the audience to very much put themselves in the shoes of the staff that are going through it in the simulation, and I think making it a bit more real, making it a bit more kind of personable, is key really to understanding the risk, basically.
100%. And I think from an individual perspective, one individual may perceive that email they've received as, I've recognised that it's a scam. It could be a new attempt. It could be a new strategy or tactic. So that ability to report, that mechanism to report, becomes all that more important from an intelligence perspective, because you can start to build a far more rounded picture of what cyber activity or cyber criminal activity is starting to evolve to or from. You talked about simple best practice as well, things like having strong, unique passwords across accounts, activating MFA across as many platforms as possible now, just to have that secondary security measure, and of course system backups as well when it comes to certainly IT infrastructure. So when we think about supporting young people, what sort of one piece of advice would you have for staff who are working with young people, who are supporting young people, for their own cyber resilience?
Yeah, I think this is where things are a lot, albeit this is difficult to certainly to attain. However, I think the key thing is to instill that trust between learner, between staff member. Certainly, I'm aware that learners, young people, if something were to happen online in the digital space, whether this is at home or whether it's in school, college, etc., it's feeling comfortable to have that open conversation with an adult. And I think certainly across the board with cybercrime, it's so massively underreported. I think there's an element of, as we mentioned earlier, being embarrassed. Certainly we want to kind of instill that no blame culture, but yeah, I think with young people, it's making sure that they're comfortable enough to have those open conversations. Certainly make them aware that it's okay to come and talk about this type of stuff. And I think with that in mind, we would see a lot of young people feel a bit more safer online, knowing that they've got, whether it's a trusted adult in school or at home, that they can really kind of rely on and share what's really going on.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, because cyber is now, certainly cyber criminality for young people is becoming a safeguarding challenge. And I know we do a lot of work individually with a lot of people across our institution, just helping support their well-being because of something that has happened online. I think I read a statistic recently that something like between 45 and 60% of young people will experience some form of cyberbullying, but only about 30% will actually report it. So it's a real interesting statistic that when you start to think about the culture of gaining support and coming out and asking for help, and often it's not knowing where to turn. So I know you mentioned earlier about sort of Tarian's geographical remit. You mentioned like from the bridge to Tenby and up to Powys, very much working with the South Wales forces, but Wales is a little bit bigger than that. We've got a little bit above, the Black Mountains. Yeah. So what does Tarian's interaction look like with, firstly, local cyber engagement, and how can those who aren't attached to Tarian gain local cyber engagement support?
Yeah, certainly. So me personally, I liaise with local protect officers in South Wales Police, Gwent Police, Dyfed Powys, and then very recently we all met, including North Wales, came down. We all met together, and basically not only shared best practice. There was a few staff changes, which was great to kind of have that interaction together. But we are all aware that, as I explained earlier, cybercrime doesn't discriminate. It's right across the board. We're all dealing with similar things. But if there is any education institutions that want kind of local help, when I talk about that cyber incident response plan, it would be giving people the escalation number for both local force and Tarian. I think collaboration is key when kind of dealing with these attacks. If the education institution is fortunate to have that third-party kind of IT support, fantastic. But certainly as you go lower into the primary school element, it might not be the case. So when we're kind of looking at this support mechanism, every force has a cyber team. Every force has someone similar to me who goes out proactively and runs sessions with both learners and staff. Whereas I'm looking more at the staff level with the aim of that cyber incident response plan. But yeah, certainly there's we can either, I know there's each force has their website, which you can kind of get access to them through there. Failing that, going forward, you can always ask me, and I can put you in the right direction as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And as part of today's episode, we'll ensure that we include the local cyber engagement officer's contact details and the Northwest ROTCU who cover North Wales, to ensure that we've got a pan-Wales approach to being able to access cyber resilience and cyber engagement resources, and of course Tarian services. So we asked this question to most of our guests. So just in summary, I suppose, of the episode, what's one thing, if you were to put yourself in the shoes of our audience, that you would like our audience to take away? What's one key message to take away from today's episode?
Yeah, I think the key thing is that most cyber attacks start with a very much a human element. With that in mind, it can be prevented. We can protect ourselves from it. Certainly, with education, it's a leadership issue, it's a safeguarding issue, and it's a well-being issue. And that there is help out there. There is support. It is fully funded. When we talk about both Tarian and local forces, law enforcement, there is help out there. And we can come to you guys, and as I say, we can ensure that this type of crime, we're comfortable enough and we're prepared enough if an attack takes place. So that's the key thing.
Start taking small, proactive steps as early as possible. Yeah. Okay, lovely. Okay, Rory, that just leaves me to say thank you very much for coming in, and really appreciate the work that you're doing, not only in education, but also in the communities you engage with as well. And I know you've got a much wider remit than just the schools and education institutions, but yeah, appreciate your time, and thank you for coming in. Diolch yn fawr.
I appreciate it, diolch.